Captain Min-Jun Park stood at the observation window of the Council Prime Orbital Station and watched 47 alien civilizations decide the fate of humanity. The chamber below stretched as large as a stadium, filled with beings that represented thousands of years of galactic cooperation. Some floated in tanks of liquid methane. Others stood on platforms adjusted for their gravity needs. A few existed as clouds of organized particles held together by force fields. Next to Min-Jun, diplomat Haiwan Choi adjusted her translation earpiece. Her face remained calm, but her hands gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. They both knew what was coming. The vote had been scheduled for weeks, but the outcome felt inevitable from the moment they arrived. "The Velkari delegation casts its vote," announced the chamber speaker, a device that translated into every language simultaneously. "We vote yes on Resolution 7 Alpha." Haiwan closed her eyes briefly. The Velkari had been trading partners with Earth for 30 years. Their vote felt like a betrayal by an old friend. Min-Jun watched as species after species announced their decision. The Tronus voted yes. The Mendrol voted yes. The Kelthar, the Prixians, the Jovan all voted yes. Only 3 small species voted no, and their voices barely registered in the overwhelming tide. Resolution 7 Alpha was simple in its cruelty. Humanity would be contained within their solar system for the next 500 years. No human ship could leave. No human could travel beyond the barrier. Earth and its colonies on Mars, Europa, and the asteroid belt would become a prison. "Why are they doing this?" whispered a young human aide standing behind them. "We haven't attacked anyone. We've followed every rule." Haiwan turned to the aide with sad eyes. "Because we scare them. We went from our first airplane to faster-than-light travel in less than 200 years. Most species take thousands of years to achieve what we did in 2 centuries. They see us growing stronger every year, and it frightens them." The vote concluded with crushing finality. 43 species voted yes, 3 voted no, 1 abstained. The chamber erupted in what Min-Jun assumed was applause, though it sounded like a mixture of clicking, humming, and sounds he had no reference for. The council speaker, a being called the Archon, floated to the center platform. Its body looked like flowing mercury given shape and purpose. When it spoke, every translator in the chamber converted its words perfectly. "Humanity has shown remarkable progress," the Archon said. "But progress without wisdom leads to danger. The human species displays emotional volatility that concerns this council. Your wars, your conflicts, your rapid expansion, all point to a species not yet ready for full participation in galactic civilization. This containment is not punishment. It is protection, both for you and for us." Min-Jun felt anger burn in his chest, but years of military discipline kept his face neutral. Protection. They called it protection, as if humanity were children who needed to be locked in their room. "The quantum barrier will be erected immediately," the Archon continued. "It will prevent any travel into or out of the Sol system. All human ambassadors and travelers currently beyond the barrier must return within 30 days. After that, the barrier becomes absolute. We will review this decision in 500 years. 500 years. Min-Jun thought about what that meant. Everyone he knew would be dead. Their children would be dead. Their grandchildren would be dead. Generations would live and die behind this wall. The session ended, and the alien delegates began filing out of the chamber. Some glanced up at the human observation deck with what might have been pity or satisfaction. Min-Jun could not tell. Reading alien emotions remained difficult even after decades of contact. A Velkari delegate approached them as they prepared to leave. Its 6 legs moved in a graceful pattern, and its 4 eyes reflected genuine sadness. "I am sorry," the Velkari said through its translator. "My government gave me no choice in how to vote." Please understand that many of us disagree with this decision." HFY nodded politely. "Then perhaps your government should have had the courage to say so publicly." The Valkyrie lowered its head and walked away without another word. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Min-Jun spent most of that time in his quarters, writing reports that felt hollow and pointless. What could he say that would make any of this better? How could he explain to billions of people that they were now prisoners in their own home? HFY found him on the observation deck one evening as their ship crossed through the outer edge of Council space. She sat down beside him and stared at the stars in silence for several minutes. "What do we do now?" Min-Jun finally asked. "We go home," HFY said. "We tell them what happened, and then we figure out how to survive this." Survive for 500 years behind a wall? Survive and maybe do more than that. HFY turned to look at him. "The Council thinks isolation will weaken us. They believe we'll stagnate or turn on ourselves or simply fade away as a threat. But they don't really understand humanity, do they?" Min-Jun raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Humans are at their best when challenged. We thrive when pushed into corners. Every great leap forward in our history came from overcoming impossible obstacles. Maybe the Council just gave us the greatest challenge we've ever faced." Min-Jun wanted to share her optimism, but the weight of the situation pressed down on him. "Or maybe we'll tear ourselves apart fighting over limited resources." "That's possible too," HFY admitted. "But I don't think we will. I think we're going to surprise them. I think 500 years from now, when that barrier comes down, we're going to show the galaxy what humanity really is." Their ship entered Sol's system 2 weeks later. The quantum barrier was already under construction, a shimmering wall of energy that would soon seal them off completely. Earth's government had prepared for their return. Messages flooded in from every nation, every colony, every outpost. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What happens now? Min-Jun stood before the United Earth Council and delivered his report. He told them about the vote, about the justifications, about the timeline. He watched their faces fall as the reality settled in. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Then someone stood up, and then another, and another. Not in anger or despair, but in determination. The Secretary General of United Earth stepped forward and spoke words that would echo through the centuries ahead. If they want to see what humanity can do with 500 years, then let us show them. Let us become what they fear we might be. Not conquerors or warriors, but something they never expected. Let us emerge from this stronger than ever. The chamber erupted in agreement. Min-Jun felt something shift in that moment. A collective decision that would define generations. The Council had tried to stop humanity. They had no idea what they had just started. 15 years had passed since the barrier went up. Dr. Seo-Yeon Kim stood in her laboratory on Mars and studied equations that would have seemed impossible before the containment. The quantum barrier that imprisoned humanity had also become humanity's greatest teacher. Every day, her team measured its energy signatures, analyzed its dimensional properties, and slowly unlocked secrets the Council had taken millennia to discover. "We're making breakthrough progress on dimensional folding," her assistant said, highlighting a section of data on the holographic display. "If we can stabilize the resonance pattern, we might be able to create pocket dimensions for storage." Seo-Yeon smiled. Before the barrier, humanity had relied on Council technology for most advanced applications. Now they had no choice but to understand the principles themselves. Necessity had transformed humanity from users of technology into true innovators. Around the solar system, similar transformations were taking place. The asteroid belt colonies had perfected closed-loop life support systems that wasted nothing. Every molecule of water, every atom of oxygen, every scrap of organic material got recycled with near-perfect efficiency. Earth's nations had finally unified their efforts, sharing resources and knowledge freely because survival demanded it. The moon had become a massive manufacturing complex. Europa's ocean colonies had learned to farm entirely new ecosystems. Mars was slowly being terraformed using techniques developed specifically to work within the barrier's limitations. Humanity had turned their prison into a laboratory for advancement. But beyond the barrier, the Galactic Council's civilization was fracturing. On the Velkari homeworld, a plague had begun spreading through the population 3 years ago. The disease attacked their nervous systems, causing paralysis and eventual death. Velkari scientists tried everything they knew, but the plague resisted all treatments. It mutated faster than they could develop vaccines. Millions had already died, and millions more were infected. The Council had sent research teams and medical supplies, but the bureaucracy moved slowly. Different species had different approaches to medicine, and coordinating efforts across the Council proved nearly impossible. Political disagreements about resource allocation turned every decision into a debate. The Velkari were dying while the Council argued. The Tronis faced a different crisis. Their industrial civilization had poisoned their world over centuries of careless expansion. Now their atmosphere was turning toxic, their water supplies were contaminated, and their food crops were failing. They needed a complete ecological restoration, but the scale of the work overwhelmed them. The Council offered advice, but little practical help. Each species had their own environmental problems, and none wanted to spare resources for another's crisis. The Mendril discovered their sun was dying. Something had destabilized the fusion reactions in their star's core, and within 50 years it would expand and consume their inner planets. They needed to evacuate billions of citizens and find new worlds, but the Council's colony worlds were already claimed. Ancient territorial agreements prevented easy resettlement. The Mendral faced extinction while lawyers debated property rights. Zik-773 was a young observer assigned to monitor the Sol system barrier. Most Council species considered it a boring assignment. Nothing happened at the barrier. Humans tried to send messages sometimes, but the barrier blocked all communication. Mostly, Zik-773 just watched sensor readings and filed reports that nobody read. But Zik-773 had grown fascinated with the humans. The barrier blocked physical travel and direct communication, but it did not block passive observation. Zik-773 could detect their radio transmissions, their data streams, their broadcasts. Over the years, Zik-773 had learned to understand human languages and decode their signals. What Zik-773 discovered amazed them. The humans were not stagnating behind the barrier. They were thriving. Their scientific papers showed innovations the Council had never considered. Their art had evolved into forms that expressed emotions Zik-773 had never imagined possible. Their philosophical debates explored questions about cooperation and unity that the Council had stopped asking centuries ago. Zik-773 began keeping detailed records. When humans published solutions to theoretical physics problems, Zik-773 saved them. When human engineers designed new recycling systems, Zik-773 documented the specifications. When human doctors developed treatments for genetic diseases, Zik-773 archived the research. One day, while reviewing the latest data, Zik-773 noticed something striking. The humans had just published a theoretical framework for treating neurological diseases caused by rapidly mutating pathogens. The approach used adaptive pharmaceutical design that could modify treatments in real time to counter mutations. It was exactly what the Velkari needed. Zik-773 stared at the data for hours. The barrier prevented communication. The rules were clear. Observers watched but never interfered. But Zik-773 knew the Velkari were dying. Thousands, every day. And here was a possible solution, created by the very species the Council had imprisoned. Back on Earth, Captain Minjun Park, now Admiral Park, stood before the United Earth Council with a proposal that many considered insane. The barrier is going to fail temporarily, he said, displaying technical data on the chamber screens. Our monitoring stations have detected quantum instabilities. In approximately 6 months, there will be a cascade effect that will drop the barrier for anywhere from 3 to 7 hours. The council members leaned forward. A temporary failure of the barrier could mean escape. It could mean freedom, at least for some ships. I propose we prepare a fleet, Admiral Park continued, but not for escape. I propose we prepare humanitarian relief missions to help the species beyond the barrier. Silence filled the chamber. Then someone laughed. Then someone else shouted in anger. The room erupted into chaos. "Help them?" one delegate yelled. "They imprisoned us! We should be planning to escape, not to help our jailers." Admiral Park waited for the noise to die down. Secretary General Choi Jin-ho, Haiwan's brother, raised his hand for silence. "Explain your reasoning, Admiral," Jin-ho said calmly. "We've been monitoring Council space as best we can through the barrier," Park said. "We know about the Velkari plague. We know about the Tronus ecological collapse. We know about the Mendral sun crisis, and we know our scientists have developed theories and technologies that could help with all of these problems. So let them suffer," someone muttered. "They chose to lock us away." "That's exactly why we should help," Park said firmly. "Because we're better than that. Because when we finally emerge from this barrier, I want the galaxy to see what humanity really is. Not a species of warriors seeking revenge, but a species of healers who help even those who wronged us." Dr. Seo-yeon Kim stood up from her seat. "The Admiral is right. I've been reviewing the data we've collected on these crises. Our research on adaptive medicine could save the Velkari. Our ecological restoration techniques could heal the Tronus homeworld. Our experience with rapid, large-scale evacuations could help the Mendral. We have solutions they desperately need." "And if we help them," Haewon Choi added, standing beside her brother, "we prove that the Council was wrong about us. We prove that humanity's strength isn't just in our technology or our military power, but in our compassion." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would prepare relief missions. When the barrier fell, they would not seek escape or revenge. They would offer help to those who had imprisoned them. Admiral Park began assembling the relief fleets immediately. Medical teams, engineers, evacuation coordinators, all volunteers who understood they might not be welcomed. 6 months to prepare for a mission that would either change everything or end in disaster. Beyond the barrier, Zix 773 made a decision that would cost them their career. They compiled the human research on adaptive medicine and anonymously transmitted it to a sympathetic Velkari scientist. It was a violation of every protocol, but Zix 773 could not watch more Velkari die when a solution existed. The pieces were moving into position. The barrier would fall soon, and nothing would ever be the same again. The barrier flickered and died at 347 Universal Galactic Time. Admiral Min-jun Park watched from the bridge of the UES Unity as the shimmering wall of energy that had trapped humanity for 15 years suddenly vanished. Alarms immediately blared across Council monitoring stations. Emergency protocols activated. Council security fleets scrambled to reinforce the barrier before any human ships could escape. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," he broadcast to his fleet. "Execute humanitarian relief operations as planned. Medical team to Velkari space, engineering team to Tronus, evacuation fleet to Mendral system, move out." The Council security commander watched in confusion as human ships scattered in different directions. This was not an escape attempt. This was not a military strike. The humans were heading straight toward the most desperate crisis zones in Council space. "What are they doing?" the security commander asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir, but they're broadcasting emergency medical credentials and disaster relief protocols. They're claiming humanitarian mission status." On the Velkari homeworld, the Government Council met in emergency session. A human fleet was approaching their space. After 15 years of silence from Earth, suddenly humans were coming. Fear rippled through the population. Were the humans seeking revenge? Were they coming to take advantage of the Velkari weakness? The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Velkari space and immediately transmitted a message. Dr. Seo-yeon Kim's face appeared on every Velkari government screen. "This is Dr. Kim of United Earth Medical Command," she said in perfect Velkari language. "We know about the plague affecting your people. We believe we may have treatments that can help. We ask permission to land medical teams on your world. We ask for nothing in return. We simply wish to help." The Velkari Council debated for 3 hours while their people continued to die. Finally, the eldest council member spoke. "We have nothing to lose. Let them try. If this is some human trick, we are doomed anyway." Dr. Kim's team landed in the capital city of Velkara Prime 12 hours later. They brought medical equipment, pharmaceutical synthesizers, and treatment protocols developed from 15 years of intense research. The Velkari doctors met them with suspicion and desperation in equal measure. "Your plague is caused by a retrovirus that mutates its protein shell every 48 hours, Dr. Kim explained, displaying molecular models. "Traditional vaccines cannot keep up with the mutation rate, but we developed an adaptive pharmaceutical system. Instead of attacking one version of the virus, our treatment teaches your immune system to recognize the core genetic structure that remains constant across all mutations." The Velkari chief medical officer studied the data. "This is brilliant. Why have we never thought of this approach?" "Because you never needed to," Dr. Kim said simply. "You had the council's resources, established protocols, proven methods. We had only ourselves and 15 years to solve every problem we might face. Isolation forced us to think differently." The treatment worked. Within days, infected Velkari began to recover. Within weeks, the death rate dropped to nearly 0. Dr. Kim's team worked around the clock, training Velkari doctors in the new techniques, setting up pharmaceutical synthesizers, and distributing treatments across the planet. The humans asked for no payment. They signed no treaties. They demanded no political concessions. They simply helped, and when their work was done, prepared to leave. The Velkari Council requested a meeting with Dr. Kim before her departure. The eldest council member, who had voted yes on Resolution 7 Alpha 15 years ago, stood before her with tears in his multiple eyes. "We condemned you to isolation," he said. "We voted to imprison your species out of fear, and you responded by saving millions of our people. Why?" Dr. Kim smiled. "Because that's what decent people do. Because helping others isn't conditional on how they treated us. Because we wanted to show you what humanity really is." Meanwhile, in Tronus space, human engineering teams were already at work. The Tronus homeworld was dying. The atmosphere contained toxic levels of industrial pollutants. The oceans were acidic. The soil was contaminated with heavy metals. Tronus scientists had estimated it would take 500 years to restore their world, assuming they could figure out how to do it. The human engineers had different plans. They arrived with atmospheric processors developed on Mars, biological remediation techniques perfected on Europa, and soil restoration methods tested in Earth's most damaged regions. They worked alongside Tronus environmental teams, sharing every technique and technology freely. "We had to learn all of this to survive," explained Chief Engineer Park Sung-min, no relation to the Admiral. "Earth wasn't always carefully managed. We made terrible mistakes over our industrial history. But being trapped in our solar system meant we had to fix those mistakes or die. Now we know how to heal damaged worlds." The Tronus watched in amazement as toxic clouds began to clear, as poisoned waters started to purify, as dead soil began to support life again. The humans worked for months without rest, refusing all offers of payment. "Your help is payment enough," Park Sung-min told the Tronus planetary governor. If our knowledge can heal your world, then our isolation had purpose. In the Mendril system, Admiral Park himself led the evacuation fleet. The Mendril star was expanding, and 3 inner planets needed to be evacuated within weeks. Billions of citizens needed transport, and the Mendril simply did not have enough ships. The human fleet arrived with massive transport vessels built during the 15 years of isolation. They had prepared for disasters, for emergencies, for scenarios where large populations might need rapid relocation. Now, those preparations paid off. We can evacuate 3 billion people in 4 weeks, Admiral Park told the stunned Mendril leadership. We have experience with large-scale population transfers from our early colonization efforts. Trust us. The operation was massive and complex. Human ships made continuous runs between the doomed planets and safe colony worlds. Human coordinators managed the logistics with efficiency that left the Mendral in awe. Every citizen was evacuated with dignity, allowed to bring possessions and pets, kept with their family groups. "How are you doing this?" asked the Mendril Prime Minister as she watched the evacuation displays. The Council estimated this would take 6 months and still result in millions of deaths. Admiral Park pulled up the coordination matrix. During our isolation, we had to perfect cooperation. We couldn't afford political disputes or bureaucratic delays. We learned to work together with perfect efficiency because survival demanded it. Now we're showing you what that looks like. On Council Prime, Zix 773 compiled reports of the human relief efforts and transmitted them to sympathetic council members. The reports showed humans saving Velkari lives, healing the Tronus world, and evacuating Mendril planets, all without asking for anything in return. A small faction within the council began asking difficult questions. If humanity could do all this while trapped behind a barrier, what had the council really accomplished by imprisoning them? If humans responded to imprisonment with compassion rather than revenge, what did that say about the council's judgment? The barrier flickered back into existence after 6 hours and 47 minutes. Most of the human relief ships were still beyond the barrier when it reformed. They were now stranded outside the Sol system, cut off from Earth with no way home. Admiral Park transmitted a message to his scattered fleets. Continue the missions. Help whoever needs help. We knew this might happen. We chose to come anyway. Make Earth proud. The Council security forces moved to intercept the stranded human ships, but the Velkari, Tronus, and Mendril governments all immediately declared the humans to be under their protection. The Council, already fracturing over multiple crises, could not afford to start conflicts with 3 major species. The humans continued their work. Dr. Kim stayed on Velkara, training more doctors. The engineering teams remained on the Tronus homeworld, overseeing the restoration. Admiral Park's evacuation fleet finished their mission, ensuring every Mendril citizen reached safety. And throughout Council space, people began to talk. They began to ask questions. They began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong about humanity. Zix 773 watched it all unfold and felt something new. Hope. The Council had tried to stop humanity by locking them away. Instead, they had created exactly what the galaxy needed. They had given humanity 15 years to perfect themselves. Now the question was whether the Council would recognize that before it was too late. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the most chaotic in 300 years. Species shouted at each other across the chamber. Delegates walked out in protest. Ancient alliances fractured over a simple question that nobody could agree on. What should they do about humanity? 8 months had passed since humans saved the Velkari from their plague, healed the Tronus homeworld, and evacuated the Mendril planets. Those human relief teams were still stranded beyond the barrier, still working, still helping anyone who asked. They had become legends throughout Council space. But now a threat had emerged that made every previous crisis look small. The Ken Collective had arrived from the Galactic Rim. Nobody knew where the Ken came from originally. They were not biological beings, but rather a machine intelligence that had achieved consciousness. They moved from system to system, assimilating all technology they found and destroying all biological life they encountered. The Ken had already consumed 7 outer systems. Billions had died. Fleets sent to stop them were destroyed or, worse, absorbed into the collective. The Ken grew stronger with every battle, learning from each encounter and adapting faster than any biological species could. The Council's response had been fractured and weak. Each species wanted to defend their own territory first. Ancient rivalries prevented effective cooperation. The Tronus refused to coordinate with the Prixians due to a trade dispute from 50 years ago. The Mendral insisted their evacuated citizens needed protection before helping others. The Velkari were still recovering from their plague and could barely contribute. The minority faction that had questioned humanity's imprisonment finally had enough support to force a vote. Representative Silkara of the Velkari stood before the council and made her case. "We imprisoned humanity out of fear," she said, her voice carrying through the translation systems. "We told ourselves it was for their own good and for our protection. But look what they did when given the chance. They saved my people. They healed the Tronus world. They evacuated Mendral planets. They did all of this despite how we treated them." "They are still dangerous," argued Representative Crane of the Kelthar. "Their rapid advancement threatens the balance of power." "What balance?" Silkara shot back. "The Ken are destroying us, and we cannot even coordinate a proper defense because we are too busy protecting our own interests. Meanwhile, humans work together with perfect efficiency. Maybe that is what threatens you. Not their weapons or their technology, but their cooperation." The debate raged for hours. Finally, the motion came to a vote. Resolution 7 Alpha would be repealed. Humanity would be freed from containment and invited to help defend against the Ken threat. The vote was close. 25 species voted yes. 20 species voted no. 2 abstained. The resolution passed by the narrowest possible margin. But several species immediately declared they would not cooperate with humans, even to save themselves. Pride and fear ran too deep. The Council was fragmenting even as it faced extinction. Back on Earth, behind the barrier that still held, the United Earth Council received the news through quantum transmissions. The barrier would be lowered, humanity was free, and they were being asked to help save the galaxy that had imprisoned them. Secretary General Choi Jin-ho read the request to the assembled government. He expected anger. He expected demands for concessions or apologies. Instead, he watched as every delegate stood and voted unanimously to help. "Prepare the fleets," Jin-ho ordered. "Full military deployment. Send everything we have." "Sir," one admiral asked, "shouldn't we demand something in return? An official apology? Reparations? Guaranteed council seat?" Jin-ho shook his head. "The galaxy is dying. People need help. That is all that matters. We will discuss politics after everyone is safe." The barrier fell 3 days later. Admiral Min-jun Park led the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 2,000 ships representing 15 years of construction and preparation emerged from Sol system and headed straight for the front lines. The Council Military Command expected humans to demand supreme authority. They expected political maneuvering and power plays. Instead, Admiral Park arrived at the coordination station and immediately asked where he was needed most. "You are not demanding command?" asked General Vortex of the Prixian fleet. "No," Park said simply. "I am offering coordination. Show me your force deployments. Show me your tactical data. Let me help you organize a proper defense." For days, Park worked with Council military leaders from a dozen species. He listened to their concerns, respected their expertise, and slowly built consensus. When species refused to work together due to old grudges, Park found ways to position them where they would not conflict. When resources were scarce, he helped prioritize based on strategic need rather than political importance. "You are not taking control," Vortex observed. You are facilitating cooperation. That is what humanity learned during our isolation, Park explained. Power comes not from controlling others, but from helping everyone work together. My job is not to command you, but to help you command yourselves more effectively. Meanwhile, Dr. Seo Yeon Kim arrived at the Research Coordination Center with her team. The Council's scientists had been trying to find a weakness in the Ken Collective for months with no success. Kim studied their data for 3 days straight without sleep. You have been approaching this wrong, she finally announced. You are trying to fight the Ken as if they are a traditional enemy, but they are a networked intelligence. They coordinate through quantum entanglement across vast distances. You cannot beat them with superior firepower. You must disrupt their coordination. We have tried jamming their signals, a Kelthar scientist said. It does not work. Because you are trying to block their communication, Kim explained. Instead, we should disrupt the dimensional resonance that allows their quantum entanglement. During our isolation, we learned to manipulate dimensional frequencies. We can create fields that destabilize quantum connections without blocking normal communication. The scientists stared at her. That should not be possible. Kim smiled. Neither should surviving 15 years of total isolation without our civilization collapsing. But we did. Now let me show you what we learned. On Velkara, diplomat Haiwan Choi met with council representatives who still opposed human involvement. She did not argue with them. She did not defend humanity's actions. Instead, she told them a story. 15 years ago, you locked us away because you feared what we might become, she said calmly. You saw our rapid advancement and imagined we would become conquerors or tyrants, but you forgot something important about humanity. We remember what it feels like to be afraid, to be weak, to need help. Every human alive today grew up behind that barrier, knowing we were prisoners. We could have become bitter and angry. We could have spent 15 years planning revenge. She paused and looked each delegate in the eye. Instead, we spent 15 years learning to be better. We perfected cooperation because we had to. We developed new technologies because we had no other choice. We learned compassion because isolation taught us how precious connection truly is. You tried to stop us. Instead, you created exactly what the galaxy needed. Why should we trust you? Demanded one delegate. You should not trust us because we ask you to, Haiwan said. You should trust us because we have already proven who we are. We saved the Velkari. We healed the Tronus world. We evacuated the Mendral. We did all of this while you kept our homeworld locked away. If that does not show you what humanity is, then nothing I say here will matter. Back at the front lines, the combined Human Council fleet faced the Ken Collective in the largest battle in galactic history. Admiral Park had coordinated forces from 30 different species into a unified strategy. It was not perfect. Species still disagreed. Old habits died hard, but for the first time, the Council forces fought as one. Dr. Kim's dimensional disruptor activated, and the Ken Collective's coordination began to fail. Ships that had moved with perfect synchronization suddenly operated independently. The machine intelligence that had seemed unstoppable started making mistakes. The combined fleet pressed their advantage, not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through the cooperation that humanity had taught them. Species covered each other's weaknesses. Resources flowed where they were needed most. No one fought for individual glory. The Ken retreated for the first time in the war. They fled back toward the galactic rim, their collective intelligence fractured by the disruption field. The combined fleet did not pursue. They had won the battle, but the war was not over. On the flagship, Admiral Park received a transmission from the Council. It was a formal apology and an invitation for humanity to take a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. The message included offers of reparations, technology sharing agreements, and privileged trading status. Park read it once and then asked for a quantum link to Earth. Secretary General Choi Jin-ho appeared on the screen. "They are offering us everything we might have demanded," Park said. "What should I tell them?" Jin-ho smiled. "Tell them we accept their apology. Tell them we will take the council seat, but tell them we want none of their reparations or privileges. Tell them the only thing humanity wants is to help build a galaxy where cooperation matters more than power." Park nodded and prepared humanity's response, knowing it would change everything. 3 months after the first major victory against the Ken Collective, Admiral Min-Jun Park stood in the command center and watched something that would have been impossible just a year ago. On the tactical display, ships from 15 different species moved in perfect coordination. They covered each other's blind spots. They shared resources without hesitation. They communicated with clarity and trust. "The Western Battle Group is requesting additional support," reported Commander Lee Ji-woo, Park's second-in-command. "The Ken are concentrating forces in that sector." Park studied the display. "Signal the Prixian heavy cruisers to reinforce. Have the Velkari medical ships move to standby positions, and ask the Mendral if they can spare their fast attack wing." Within minutes, the coordinated response was underway. Every species knew their role. Every captain trusted the others to do their part. This was not the fractured council that had failed to stop the Ken initially. This was something new. General Vortex of the Prixian fleet approached Park at the command station. The massive alien's appearance had once been frightening to humans, but now Park saw him as a trusted colleague. "Admiral, I must ask you something," Vortex said. "How did humans learn this? How did you perfect cooperation to this degree?" Park considered the question carefully. "We had no choice. When the Council imprisoned us, we had limited resources and nowhere to go. Every human nation, every colony, every settlement had to work together perfectly, or we would all die. There was no room for politics or pride. We learned that cooperation is not a weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. And you are teaching us this lesson," Vortex said. "Not through conquest or domination, but by example." "That is the only way to truly teach anything," Park replied. In the research division, Dr. Seo-yeon Kim worked with scientists from 24 species to improve the dimensional disruptor technology. The device that had turned the tide against the Ken was evolving rapidly as different species contributed their unique perspectives. A Kelthar physicist approached with new calculations. "Dr. Kim, if we adjust the resonance frequency according to these parameters, we can extend the disruption field by 30%. Kim studied the math and nodded. "That is excellent work. Have you shared this with the Tronus team? They were working on field extension yesterday." "I will do that now," the Kelthar said, then paused. "Dr. Kim, I voted yes on Resolution 7 Alpha. I supported imprisoning your species. I believed humans were too dangerous to be free." Kim looked at him calmly. "And now?" "Now I understand that we were the dangerous ones. We were so afraid of losing our power that we forgot how to work together. You humans showed us what we had lost." "We did not do it to teach a lesson," Kim said gently. "We did it because it was right. But I am glad you learned anyway." On Council Prime, the formal assembly was unlike any that had come before. Every species had sent their highest-ranking representatives. The chamber was packed with delegates, observers, and media representatives from across the galaxy. Today, humanity would officially take their seat on the Galactic Council. Diplomat Haiwan Choi stood before the assembly in a simple Earth diplomatic uniform. No elaborate decorations, no weapons. Just a human woman representing her species with quiet dignity. The Archon, still serving as council speaker, floated to the center of the chamber. Its mercury-like form reflected the lights from countless screens and displays. "Humanity of Earth," the Archon began. "We acknowledge the grave error we made 15 years ago. We imprisoned your species out of fear and called it protection. We let our pride blind us to the truth. You responded to our injustice not with revenge but with compassion. You saved lives, healed worlds, and showed us what true strength means. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize. HFY bowed slightly. Humanity accepts your apology. We hold no grudges. We seek no revenge. We only want to move forward together. We offer you a permanent seat on this council, the Archon continued. We offer reparations for the years of isolation. We offer privileged status and guaranteed resources. We offer everything we can to make amends for what we did. HFY glanced at the other human delegates in the observation area. Secretary General Choi Jin-ho gave her a slight nod. They had discussed this moment many times. Humanity accepts the council seat, HFY said clearly, but we refuse all reparations and privileges. We do not want special treatment. We do not want to be above any other species. We want only to be equals, working together with everyone else to build a better galaxy. Surprised murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Archon's form shimmered with what might have been confusion. You refuse our reparations? The Archon asked. After what we did to you? What you did to us made us stronger, HFY explained. Those 15 years of isolation taught humanity lessons we could not have learned any other way. We learned to cooperate perfectly. We learned to solve problems others thought impossible. We learned that our strength comes not from dominating others, but from helping everyone succeed. If we accept special privileges now, we become exactly what you feared we might be. We become a species that stands above others rather than beside them. Representative Silkara of the Velkari stood and began to applaud. The gesture was not natural to her species, but she had learned it from humans. One by one, other delegates joined. Soon the entire chamber was filled with sounds of approval from 47 different species. The formal vote came quickly. Humanity was granted a permanent council seat with no special privileges, exactly as they requested. HFY Choi took her place among the other delegates, equal to all of them. After the ceremony, HFY met privately with Admiral Park, Dr. Kim, and Secretary General Choi Jin-ho. They stood in a quiet observation room overlooking the council chamber. We did it, Jin-ho said softly. 15 years ago, they locked us away. Today, we stand as equals. More than equals, Admiral Park said. The council is unified in ways it never was before. Species that would not even speak to each other before are now coordinating military operations. Scientists who competed are now collaborating. We changed everything. Dr. Kim nodded. The Ken threat is not over, but for the first time, I believe we can win. Not because we have better weapons, but because we finally have true cooperation. Do you think they understand yet? HFY asked. Do they understand what really happened? Jin-ho smiled. Some do. Silkara understands. Vortex understands. Zix 773 certainly understands. The others will figure it out eventually. The Council tried to stop humanity because they feared we would become conquerors. Instead, we became exactly what the galaxy needed. We became the species that teaches cooperation. In the months that followed, the tide of the war turned decisively. The Ken Collective found itself facing a united galaxy for the first time. Species worked together with the efficiency humanity had demonstrated. Resources flowed where they were needed. Pride and politics took a back seat to survival and cooperation. Admiral Park developed joint training programs where different species learned to work together. Dr. Kim established research exchanges where scientists shared knowledge freely. HFY Choi mediated disputes and helped species find common ground. The humans did not lead through force or authority. They led by example, showing everyone that cooperation was stronger than competition, that helping others made everyone stronger, that the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. Zix 773, who had lost their position as an observer for sharing human research during the plague, was reinstated and promoted. They became humanity's liaison officer, helping translate not just languages but also cultural perspectives. "You knew, didn't you?" Admiral Park asked Zix 773 one day. "Back when we were still imprisoned, you knew what we were becoming." "I suspected," Zix 773 admitted. "I watched you humans transform isolation into innovation, imprisonment into growth, betrayal into compassion. I knew the Council had made a terrible mistake, but I also knew that mistake had created something beautiful." The final battle against the Ken Collective came 18 months after humanity joined the Council. It was not one massive fight, but rather a coordinated series of operations across 24 systems. Every species played their part. Every fleet knew exactly where to be and when. The Ken, confused by the dimensional disruptors and overwhelmed by perfect cooperation, retreated beyond the galactic rim. They had not been destroyed, but they had been driven back. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. In the victory celebration on Council Prime, representatives from every species gathered together. There were no separate celebrations, no species-specific parties. Everyone mingled freely, sharing stories and forming friendships that crossed every biological boundary. Admiral Park stood with General Vortex, both of them watching the celebration with satisfaction. "The galaxy will never be the same," Vortex said. "No, it will not," Park agreed. "But that is good. The old galaxy was fractured and weak. This new one, built on cooperation instead of competition, will be stronger than anything we have seen before." "And it is all because the Council tried to stop you," Vortex said with what might have been a laugh. Park smiled. "Sometimes the best gifts come from the worst circumstances. They gave us 15 years behind a barrier. We used those years to become what we were always meant to be. Not conquerors or warriors, but teachers and healers. We emerged from isolation stronger than ever, not despite what they did to us, but because of it." Across the chamber, Dr. Kim discussed research projects with scientists from 6 different species. Haewon Choi mediated a discussion between former rivals who were now planning joint colonies. Secretary General Choi Jin-ho spoke with the Archon about future council initiatives. Humanity had taken their place in the galaxy, not above anyone else, not seeking dominance or revenge, simply standing as equals, ready to help, ready to cooperate, ready to show everyone that together anything was possible. The Galactic Council had tried to stop humanity. They had failed. But their failure had given the galaxy exactly what it needed. In trying to contain humanity's strength, they had helped humanity discover what true strength really meant, and the galaxy would never be the same.